Hello and welcome back to the Beerworks channel. Something different today. I'm riding solo. Nick is off playing Valhalla. I've been lucky enough to be playing Cyberpunk, so that's what today's video is going to be based about. The experience so far with Cyberpunk 2077. I've been lucky enough to be able to play it on my PC, so I've had little to no glitches pretty much, I could say, over my gameplay so far. I'm about 10 to 11 hours through now, so I've started the main story. I've done a fair bit of side stuff, and I'm pressing on now, and I have to say I'm really enjoying it. Let's just start off with a quick overview of what I think of the world and the world building, I should say, of the game. The game is a really good experience so far. The world is so nice and vibrant, but also has that dark grittiness, and it's a future that it's a very different one that I picture our future being in the real world. But I guess in a way that the way society goes, this could potentially the way it turn out. So the world has so much going on in it. There's busy traffic, and obviously middle of the day there's people around everywhere. Obviously it does change over when you get to the early hours of the morning. There's not as many people on the street, which makes sense. People often in bed sleeping, you'd think so. But Night City is a good and vibrant and packed city with stuff going on all the time, criminals running amok, and that's when you can help out the NPCs, the police officers, stop crimes and stuff like that, or join in the crimes. It's up to you, really. But yeah, so just a quick talk about the layout. There are certain parts of the map that obviously change it aesthetically wise, I could say, of it. So you got the really big city parts, and then you've got the Badlands as well, which is like the open desert parts of it. Reminds me a bit of GTA. How it's not as big of a map as GTA, but it's probably just as dense in some areas. But yeah, overall, if you really like the look of Cyberpunk, when you eventually get into playing it, you're gonna really enjoy this world. It's a lived-in world. It feels like a lot of stuff's happened in the past, and yeah, that the city that you're living in now is a living, breathing city of its own. So that's just a little bit about it. I don't want to go too much into depth if you haven't touched on it yet. So obviously, the next big thing would be the story. Now, the story is a really well-driven and, I guess, directed story. There's multiple paths you can take throughout the story that it doesn't change too much from the overall main quest. Obviously, you have the three ways you can start out the game, which is um, Nomad, and Street Kid. I started at Nomad, so I started out in the desert. I haven't done the other two yet, so I'm really interested to do another playthrough with those two kind of starts. I know as a dialogue option, the way you start out does not change too much, as in with your options when you're talking to characters. Only about 1 in 10 conversations you have with main story kind of stuff has that different dialogue option that says, okay, Nomad would say this, and you can click that option or you can just continue, but it doesn't really have a real big effect on the story. In saying that, like I said, I'm only 10 hours in, so obviously there might be more happens down the track, which I can update when Nick and I eventually both play it, probably when we start up season 2 of the podcast. So far, I've really enjoyed the story. It's really engaging, and it wants you to push on. And I believe I didn't get the title card of Cyberpunk 2077 until about 5 hours into the game, so that's when it really starts to kick off a bit. But leading up to that, it felt like a crazy story already. So yeah, I have to admit that this story is really compelling and really easy, and not I wouldn't say heaps easy to follow. Sometimes you have random characters pop up once in a while, and you're meant to know them, but maybe I just wasn't paying attention in a certain situation or conversation. So overall, story on point at this stage. Loving it, grinding away at it. I've done 10 hours now, 11 hours in 5 days, which is good for me at the moment. I'm so busy. So yeah, that's the story so far. The guns feel cool. They're futuristic, but nothing really jumps out at you. And I believe that the melee combat's pretty standard as well. It's just hack and slash kind of thing. There's no there is a dodge mechanic. And you've also got so you can block and do a counter punch or a counter strike straight away. If you time it right. It's a bit of a parry system, is what I should call it. That's pretty fun as well. But in saying that, the combat is very surface level. There's not much into it after that. There are other ways to go about your kind of combat things. If you want to do stealth stuff, that's fine. So you can silently take out people, dump them into dumpsters or into storage cabinets or something like that. And the stealth kind of gameplay is fun. I find you can sort of, hack into things and take cameras down, or you can use a TV to distract an enemy and they'll get drawn over there, and that's when you can sneak behind them or something like that. Or you can use your abilities within your own head, which is sort of your upgrades through the cyber kind of stuff, where you can reset their optics and they'll sort of lose track of where you are, or you might distract them for long enough to get close enough to take them out before they can alert other people. So there are different ways to go about it, and I always found myself sort of going in with a stealthy kind of concept at the start, and then if I went loud, I went loud. It didn't bother me too much. I've only versed a few enemies where they were really tough enemies to face, and I died. Most of the time, I could maneuver my way out of it and survive. So overall, the combat is standard. Nothing too flashy. Some guns are cool. You know, there's a few really cool weapons, the smart weapons and stuff like that. And most weapons have a secondary, like a charge kind of feature in it as well. So combat, it's there. It's in the it's not great. It's not bad. It's just in the middle, which is good, I think, for a game like this. So that's a touch on combat anyway. Moving into the bugs and glitches of the game, I haven't really experienced too much of it, I would say. I had a few things glitching through the air, and in some of this gameplay, you might see a motorbike sort of zip across the screen. But I find that on PC, there are games like that. No matter how well polished they are, you get those kind of glitches. I know that on the consoles, it's pretty bad sometimes, and there's a lot of like characters getting clipping through walls or objects and stuff like that. So, but personally, I think I've only had one quest line, like a side quest, where it had got stuck and didn't really move anywhere the next part. So I just had to reload like the last 10 minutes, which wasn't such a bad thing. I was a bit disappointed, but I mean, it was the second day of the game. The first patch was only out. The small hot fix or whatever it was is out. So yeah, overall, I haven't experienced much of it. I know that it's a lot worse in other areas and on the consoles. So we can touch on that in a moment. So personally, I have not had that kind of experience yet, which I'm really happy about. I'm really enjoying it so far. So my final thoughts on the game, and obviously the state that it's in at the moment. If you have a high-end PC or like even a mid to high range, you can play it on some decent settings. And the gameplay that you've been watching at the moment is my settings. I'm not playing with the highest frame rate. I know that much, but I'm playing to a point where I'm enjoying it and it doesn't bother me too much. I don't think I could push my PC any harder than that. I think it might I might run into some problems. But in saying that, I'm playing at what I'm enjoying it at, so it doesn't bother me too much. And like I said, the visuals are quite nice, and so yeah, take from that what you will. But obviously, at the moment, it's really bad on consoles, and I really feel for the guys that are on current gen. Even next gen, it's still scaled up from what it is on the current gen, and it's just still not good. Like I've seen not frame rates drop down to like 15 or 10 to 15 in some areas on some people's reviews and YouTube videos, and that's a real shame because Cyberpunk's one of these games where I reckon it will be one of the better games of, the recent history. But people might have a bit of a sour taste from the get-go if they're playing on those current gens, because I don't think it's playing at what it's... I don't think CD Projekt Red were ready. Well, not so much they were ready. I think they were sort of pushed to release it. Obviously, they delayed it by so much, but I definitely think this is a next-gen game. I don't think current hardware or the old hardware can handle what this can really put out and look at it at its greatest. So I really think that if you have an Xbox One or Xbox One X or a PlayStation 4 Pro, I think you could probably give this a miss just for a little while. Wait for maybe for a few more patches to come out, because then it might run a bit smoother. Or if you do have next gen and you're scaling up, even then maybe wait. I know a lot of my friends are waiting, and that's fine. I'm lucky enough that I can play on my PC and I'm loving it. But if you are thinking about throwing away Cyberpunk at the moment just because of all this stuff that's happening, please give it a shot. Like, honestly, wait a few months, wait till the next gen version comes out, because this is one of the greatest games that you'll play in probably the last 3 or 4 years. Just the experience of like driving through Night City and the dialogue and character interactions it's awesome. It's really amazing. And obviously Keanu Reeves is in it playing as a certain character. I won't expand any more on that. But he's got a good character development too. So give it an opportunity, please. That's all I say. CD Projekt Red have done a really good job in the past with The Witcher and they're all, I should say, The Witcher games. And The Witcher 3 released with a few bugs and glitches, not as bad as obviously what Cyberpunk is. And obviously that was more optimized for the consoles at the time. But I know that I have the faith. I have the faith in CD Projekt Red to really release this game on next gen at the top end of what they can push it at. So if you are umming and ahhing, just hold off, give it an opportunity to let it sit there and hopefully get some nice hot fixes and updates, and eventually it'll become one of the better games of this generation. So all I can say is just give a bit of faith to the developers. I don't think they would have released this game if they didn't think that it was going to be where it's going to be in the next couple of months. Obviously right now it's not there, so just back them in. But overall, my experience has been really fun. And like I said, the story and the side missions. Side missions can go up to 2 to 3 hours. Some of them, with extended, it's like a branch off the main story. So this game has a lot to offer. And people were complaining about the small story that it might only go for 10 hours or something like that. With the added content of, the 20 hours, with the expanded stuff through the side missions and all the other stuff you do, you can definitely push for upwards of 40 to 50 hours. I've seen other people doing playthroughs and they're up to 45 plus. So don't take those small snippets of, video game reviews, like trying to smash out the main story and get it done so they can get the review up. Wait until the game's been out for like a month or two where people have really grinded away at it and really enjoyed it. So overall, a really disappointing start on, I should say, the current gen consoles, but on PC, it's been really good. So all I can say is just hold out, I reckon, guys. Give it a chance. It is totally worth playing. Anyways, thank you for tuning in, and I hope you enjoyed. We'll talk to you again soon. Take care.